Just allow yourself to settle down, be at peace. Let us start with the 3 counts of Om. Inhale. Thank you, friends. Gently open your eyes. Last class we had done up to, I think, we had covered Sinhasana up to 52nd shloka. Am I right? Please help me if I'm not in the proper position, because the Hatha Yoga class happens at various places, so I may not be doing justice. Yes, as far as I know, we had done up to 51, and 52nd one, which was another explanation about the Sinhasan, was about to start. We will go ahead and do the Sinhasan completely once again. Or is that just we completed the Matsyendra Matam of the technique related to the Padmasanam, the third variation that we had just done?
Right.
Yeah. I think it was 48.
I think we can, yes, that's right. 49
Yes,
we have done.
So 48th one, we will just go ahead, try to understand the Matsyendra Matam related to the practice of Padmasana. And he says, Kutva samputitau karo dridataram badhvatu padmasanam gardasi sannidhaya chibukam ayonscha tachetasi tam varam apan urdhvam anilam protsarayan puritam munchana pranam upaiti bodhamatulam shakti prabhavannaraha. The Padmasan pose very firmly with your hands resting on one another on the legs so as to create a hollow through the palms, which we discussed last time, and then pressing the chin equally firmly on the chest, repeatedly raising the Apanavayu, exhaling and inhaled prana, and meditating upon that one supreme reality. The yogi attains unparalleled knowledge, that is supreme realization, is what is said. And we earlier class we understood, okay, what is the raising of the apan vayu, how we can get rid of the toxins in the body and allow this apan vayu is directed downward to raise up, so that the prana is able to enter through the sushumna and become one with the consciousness, or you can say with the Shiva. If we go ahead from this 48th shloka to 49th one, it says, Padmasane sthito yogi nadi dwarena puritam marutam dharayed astu sa mukto matra samshayah. So, sa mukto matra samshayah, there is no doubt about it. That person or the yogi who has made himself qualified to this state sits in the Padmasan pose to retain the breath in by inhaling through the nostril is surely to be liberated. That means by being in Padmasana and going through this thing. Sunil bhai, kindly mute your audio. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm having trouble muting.
Is everything fine? Yeah.
No, because
Huh.
I'm logged in through two accounts. One is the
Uh-huh.
account, one is the attendee account.
Acha.
Little bit of trouble muting.
Because this is creating a screeching sound.
Yeah, no, there is in the next door house, there are cutting happening.
Okay.
So I
Fine.
so let me see.
Fine.
आप please continue कीजिए. I may exit.
Yes.
आप please you
The
carry on.
Sure. The yogi who is sitting in Padmasana and retaining breath in by inhaling through the nostrils is, as he is practicing, he will be liberated in the course of time. And Swatmaramji says that there is no doubt about it. But let's clarify. When he says this, he takes it for granted that the person who is practicing Padmasana is observing all the rules and regulations. He is having a very good control on his diet. He is practicing Mitahara. Now, from 56, 57 onwards, we will be coming across the understanding of Mitahar also. And then what is the Patya Ahar, Apatya Ahar, as well as you need to come across the understanding of, the Sadhak Tattva, Badhak Tattva, and everything taken into consideration. You are trying to excel and gain a proper practice, where this gesture of in that Padmasana, having a proper breathing pattern, where raising your palm by retaining the breath in, observing that kind of chin lock and maybe abdominal lock, along with that anal lock, where the situation is very apt for that kind of state of meditation, which takes a person even to self-realization. So this 49th shloka is making us understand that. But to just make sure that everyone is also understanding the other aspect, as we were discussing about the sense control and its relation with the prasadanam in the early morning session, we should understand. Sunil Bhai. Is it only me hearing this screeching sound, or everyone is hearing? No. Yeah. Okay. Sunil bhai, the other thing which you have logged in, you can log out and log in with the audio mute, so that may help. I'm trying to experiment. Please, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sure. Because the sound is so strong, it is not audible. It may happen that the meeting may end. In case that happens, we just click on the link again and rejoin. Sure. No problem. But this has to end because it is very disturbing. I think it has stopped. Can everyone still hear me now very clearly? Okay, great. Thank you. Now we are going ahead with the next posture, which is Sinhasana. Start with that Atha Sinhasanam. Gulfau cha Vrushunasyadaha Sivanyaha Parshvayoho Shipet Dakshine Savya Gulfam to Daksha Gulfam to Savyake. Now he placed the two angles. Gulfaucha Vrushanasyadah. Now Vrushanasyadah, it is a place where you have to keep the these ankles that is just behind or below the scrotum, that is just of the perineal region. On the either side of the perineum, the left ankle on the right side, Dakshine Savya Gulfam to Daksha Gulfam to Savyake. That means you have to cross the legs at the ankles and let the ankles touch the other side of the perineum, or that is the opposite side, and you have to sit on it. Seated like that, he is Hastau tu Janvoho. That means keep your hands on the knees. Samsthapya Swa Angulihi Samprasarya Cha Vyatta Vaktro. By spreading your fingers and stretching them out, Vyatta Vaktro, let the tongue, you have your mouth open. He is not telling us to bring the tongue out, but he says Vyatta Vaktro Nirikshet Nasagram tu Samahita. Place arms on the knees, spreading out the fingers, opening the mouth wide. One should gaze at the tip of the nose and be well perfectly composed. Now, when we are trying to understand this, we see Sinhasana, Sinha Mudra, such kind of practices being practiced with not only the mouth wide open, but even the tongue coming out down towards the chin, and you are taking the chin towards the chest. And in some traditions, they even produce a sound of roaring, ah, karke aise. And that is where they say that this is Sinhasana, Sinha Mudra. So varied from different schools of yoga. But let me be very clear here about the to bring about that kind of sound. In fact, it says after sitting in that cross ankle position below the scrotum, on the opposite sides of the perineum, you should be keeping your hands on the knees and stretching your fingers, samprasarya. That is where you are going to spread your fingers like the claws of the tiger or the lion. And Vyatta Vaktro, just open your mouth wide. One should be gazing at the tip of the nose. Nirikshet nasagram tu samahitah, and be very well become composed within. So this gesture itself, by placing the ankles, you are already putting a pressure in that Muladhar region where the Apan Vayu is forced to get pushed up. And when you are stretching your fingers and doing attitudinal gestures with your mouth, where you may be keeping your eyes on the tip of the nose and the mouth wide open with your fingers stretched, this is a mental gesture which is kind of bringing about some kind changes in your mental ability or mental faculty, which is helping you to get focused on one aspect of that sinha, of that lion, and completely get disconnected with everything else. In the next sloka, he talks that this Sinhasan, which is really appreciated by the learned or the adepts in yoga, he says, Sinhasanam bhaved etat pujitam yoga pungavaihi bandha tritaya sadhanam trisadhanam kute cha asanam uttamam. This is Simhasan, which is really appreciated, adored by eminent yogis, which is one of the best of the asanas, and it facilitates adopting the three bandhas. So when it says adopting the three bandhas, just now I told you, as the ankles are pressing at the perineum, automatically the Apan Vayu is going up because of the pressure at the Muladhar region. You have already taken the chin towards the chest with your wide opened mouth and the nose on the tip, gaze on the tip of the nose, and your hands stretched. So as the chin is coming towards the chest. Now, since the inhaled air or the exhaled air retained either inside or outside, you are in a state of complete focusing. You are in a state like that of complete dedication to the effort that you have put in, and you are in it. It is going to bring about the benefits of the Bandha Trayam. Now, what are these Bandha Traya? Moola Bandha, Jandhara Bandha, Udyana Bandha, which we will be learning in the third chapter of Mudras, where you will be coming across this three, which is used not only in pranayama as well as other mudras, but also here you can see certain asanas which are bringing about the aspect of bandhatraya automatically. Now, mudras we need to understand. These are the mudras which bring about a feeling of gladness, a feeling of happiness. Mudamrati iti mudra. That's what we say. So that which brings in gladness, it is a mudra. Today, in the morning, when we were talking about that prasadnam, that tranquil state of mind, or that kind of peaceful and complete composed state of mind, can also be had with this practice of Hatha Yoga, where you prepare yourself to this kind of postures and bring about that kind of attitudinal changes in your mind. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras also we come across this Chitta Prasadanam, where it is said, Maitri Karuna Mudita Upekshaha Sukha Dukha Punya Apunya Vishayanam Bhavna Tash Chitta Prasadanam. So Maitri towards Sukha, Karuna towards Dukha, then expressing gladness towards Punya, that is Mudita, and there is something like Upeksha or showing indifference. Some people say it's like ignoring Apunya. No, it is not ignoring, but at the same time, it should not become a kind of obstacle on your path where you're trying to make your mind bring composed, peaceful, and tranquilized. So there, anything which is coming in between and trying to distract your mind, just show your indifference to it. That is upeksha towards that state of apunya. So apunya is anything and everything which is trying to distract your mind, distract your senses from the process. And you know, this is Sinhasan, which we are talking about. We are cultivating a kind of gesture within and doing this posture in order to bring about that effect of Bandha Tritaya Sandhanam. It is going to bring about the effect of the same by the three bandhas, which you are going to experience here in the Sinhasana pose. So this is how he has described Sinhasan. Any comments from you all, friends, that you would like to clarify or you would like to share for this Sinhasana? We have gone through these three shlokas, which not only defines the technique, but gives us an understanding of how we get connected to the ultimate state of peace within. That may be the reason great yogis are really adoring this practice. And okay, Asha ma'am says nothing to say. Ashutosh sir, you want to share something? You want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to ask, what is the sequence that you recommend generally between Padmasan, Siddhasan, and Simhasan?
Now
What is
here,
the sequence that you generally recommend?
we had discussed this earlier also.
Right.
There is no right sequence for a practice.
Right.
In fact, we should go from, you know, a kind of learning process from basics and gradually progress. That is a preparation. But once you have prepared yourself nicely for the practice of the asana, now it depends completely upon your nature. What kind of inner nature you have and which practice literally clicks with you, where you feel at a peace, at completely settled state of mind and body. Now that becomes important. So maybe Padmasan is something which you would love while practicing pranayama, because in pranayama you have to sit for a long hour and practice those breathing patterns. So you may be feeling very comfortable in Padmasan. But here, sitting in the cross leg position of the heels or the ankles pressing the Muladhara region may not be always comfortable for you. So you would like to just practice it for a while, come out of it, and gain a proper hold on it by regular practice. So it may be one of the cultural practices initially, and later on it can become a practice of, meditative posture itself, where you will be able to go for a prolonged period of maintenance and get into that state which we were talking about. So now here it is very clear which is clicking to you, whether it is Siddhasan, whether it is Padmasan, or whether it is Sinhasan. So postures are many, and these are the four important meditative postures which he is talking about. And he says out of 84, these four are the most important ones. And in that he also goes ahead and says that Siddhasan is the most important out of these four also. We have learned that earlier also. So when he says Siddhasan is important, but Sabir Bhai is not able to practice Siddhasan. So does that mean that Sabir Bhai should feel guilty or remorse out of it? No. Whatever is available, readily take it and try to utilize it to excel. Maybe Siddhasan is into coming in for you in future. That's how your approach should be towards the practice, rather than going into the sequence. I hope you got it, sir.
Yes.
Yes. So this is how we deal with the practices, and then go ahead. Let us come to the practice of Bhadrasana now. Atha Bhadrasanam. Gulfau cha vrushuna syadah sivanya paro shipet savya gulfam tatha savye daksha gulfam tu dakshine पार्श्वपादौ च पाणिभ्याम दृढ़ं बद्ध्वा सुनिश्चलम भद्रासनम भवेदेतत् सर्वव्याधि विनाशनम गोरक्षण आसनम इत्याहुर इदम वै सिद्ध्या सिद्ध योगिनः. The Siddha yogis have also given this Bhadrasan the name of Goraksha Asan, which is again, see here also it is again said that Bhadrasan will bring Sarva Vinayam. It will destroy all the diseases, as we had earlier discussed in Padmasana also. And if you go to the chapter of Pranayama, when we do Bhastrika, we will be coming to this understanding that this explanation of Padmasana is known as Sarva Papa Pranashanam. So Sarva Papa Pranashanam, it is like overcoming the impact of the karmas also, or something related to Papa or something like that, that our Papa is also going to get annihilated. So where we are coming across this practices and how they are going to bring about these changes, whether it is Vyadhi, whether it is Papa, or whether it is some other benefit. These are all preventive measures where you are cultured with your mind to become totally disconnected from the material world and get connected with the spirituality. So that is the beauty of all the postures where we go ahead. Now here in the technique he says, Gulfau cha vrushuna syadaha sivanyaha parshvayoho shipet. Place the two heels under the scrotum. In the earlier one, they were said to be crossed and on the opposite side. But here it is said on the either side of the perineum, the left on the left side and the right on the right side. It is very clearly saying here, Savya Gulfam Tata Savya Daksha Gulfam tu Dakshine. The right should be on the right side and the left should be on the left side. That means below the scrotum, nearer to the buttocks region or the glutes, you should keep the right ankle below the right side of the glute, the left ankle below the left ankle, left side of the glute. And this is here is saying, firmly holding with hands the feet, which are thus made to touch the sides. Now what you are doing? You are holding the feet which are coming there beside the sides. Now just imagine the toes coming sideways out, and you are holding the feet which are thus made to touch the sides. One should remain steady. This is Bhadrasan, which destroys all the diseases. Now if I picture, you will get an idea of the technique which we are trying to discuss and tell ourselves. Here, if you see, this is the Bhadrasan posture. This is, now I'm making it more clear. Both the heels coming under the scrotum and by interlocking your fingers, you're holding the feet, pressing the knees down, and there you go ahead with the practice. So this is Bhadrasana. Okay. So here again, he says this practice is also known as Gorakshasana by some known yogis. But now let me tell you one thing. When we go ahead and try to understand what is Gorakshasana in Gheranda Samhita, the technique is different. It is not the same. It is different to what is Bhadrasana. And there the technique of Bhadrasana is very similar to what is being explained over here. A slight difference in the placement of the heels and all, where you have to evert them and keep it below the scrotum. Everting and keeping is really very much challenging, where if suppose now this is my hands, imagine these are the toes and this is the heel of the palm is the heel of the feet. Now here if you keep it in front like this, you're holding the feet like this and you're going ahead in according to Hatha Pratipika. But if you see Gheranda Samhita, it goes ahead and tells you to keep the toes backward and the heels being turned in front, which is nearly impossible for people like you and me. But the yogis, maybe Jayadev, Jai Kumar here along with us, may be able to do that. I don't know. But at the same time, you need to take the feet pointing it backward and the heels pointing in front, and thereby keeping it scrotum and still going ahead with that practice of Bhadrasana. This is very challenging, but the one which is showed here is somewhat simple. Now, when I say somewhat simple, it is for simple for the person who is practicing regularly the yogic practices and brought about the flexibility into the knees and the thighs and the calves. Otherwise, when you bring both the heels closer, they don't even come near to the perineum. Forget about keeping them below the scrotum and below the perineum on the either sides of the buttocks. It is almost impossible for them. And when they bring it closer and closer, they find that still the heels are away almost 1 feet to 1.5 feet, and it is yet to come closer to the perineum or to the groin. And here he is talking about placing it. So a person who is regular with the practice can certainly do this, and we have seen it very good practitioner, they doing the practice of Bhadrasana both ways, as I told you about it in Hatha Pratipika as well as that of the Gheranda Samhita. Still there are people who do it and show us the demonstration. Even the girl which I was talking about, she is able to do that so beautifully and sits in that very comfortably. A young girl of just 24 years of age, she is able to do all these practices because she's been trained since childhood, and we haven't gone through that kind of state. Anyways, if you see the next shloka, it says evam asanam bandheshu yogindro vigat shramah abhyasin nadika shuddhim mudra adi avana kriyam. The advanced yogi who has thus overcome fatigue by practicing asanas should now practice purification of nadis and manipulation of the prana and mudras, as we were earlier also talking about the same. So now here with the Bhadrasana explanation technique, he is telling us that having explained this many asanas, you need to overcome all kinds of exertion, fatigue, and make your body more and more stronger, more and more able, so that you can start doing the practice of purification of nadis, that is nadi shodhan, manipulation of prana, that is kumbhaka, and when you go ahead and practice mudras also ahead, this kind of postures will be very much helpful, which will be an asset for you when you go ahead next. And in the next, he gives us the the sequence of how to go about with the yogic practices. But this sequence is you can say not accepted by everyone. As we go ahead and do understand the Gheranda Samhita, you will come across a different kind of sequence altogether. Here the sequence is asanam, kumbhakam, chitram, mudrakyam, karanam, tata athanadanu abhyasanu kramo hate. Asan, then various varieties of kumbhaka, and the practices which are called as mudras, then the nadanu sandhan, the practices which will lead us into Laya Yoga or Samadhi. This is the correct sequence of the practice of Hatha Yoga. Now, this is been told by Swatmaram Suri. But when we go to Gheranda Muni's understanding of the practice, he is different. He starts with Shatkarma, that is Shuddhi Kriya, first purification of the body, and then talks about asana, and then talks about mudras, then talks about pratyahar, controlling of the senses, withdrawal of the senses, and then going ahead to the next, which is known as pranayama. And after pranayama, he talks about the chapter dhyana and then the chapter of samadhi. So this is how he is going ahead with his sequence. And he says that these 7 steps are to be taken in sequence as Sapta Shuddhi. So his version of Shuddhi is with different sequence, and here it is different. Now, Gheranda Samhita is a later text which is coming to us in 18th century. And Hatha Pratipika is one of the prior ones coming into the 14th century or 15th century. Now, the 14th century is giving us one sequence, but after this practice, almost for 300 years to 400 years, maybe these yogis might have realized as the atmosphere is changing, as the people's mind is changing, as there are people with various aspirations and inspired version of having and seeing the world, there has to be a change in the purificatory methods to be practiced first, and then the physical ability next, and then go ahead for the other things. So this is where the sequence might have changed with the particular understanding. See, that is the reason the philosophical aspects never changed. Bhagavad Gita is as it is, and never any person said, hey, this should be taken like this and this should be taken that way. And every time it is applicable, whatever may be the state of life or the time. But when it comes to practices, it has always changed. Now, beyond Gheranda Samhita, living in this world, where every individual is affected with some or the other kind of imbalance, disorders, ailments, diseases, the great contemporaries like Dr. Jaydev, Swami Kuvalyananda, these people, they have really made a lot of differences in the practices, which is really applicable to the people with their perspective of comfortness, and then connecting it to the traditional approach and going ahead, making them understand their ability with their perspective and molding it nicely to go ahead. Before going and understanding the mitahar and diet factors, is there anything that you would like to connect to this? Sunil Bhai, Ashutosh sir, Asha ma'am.
So, Bhadrasana can be done lying down?
That is known as supine Bhadrasan, which is usually, which is Supta Bhadrasan, which is usually advised for females who are pregnant or females who are experiencing menstrual issues. For them, it is advised that they should go for supine Bhadrasan, which gives a very good kind of groin stretch on the pelvic region, and it creates a kind of negative pressure in the abdominal region, where the proper stretching on the ovaries, on the uterus, on the bladder is helping that individual, whether female or whether male, also related to their prostate glands and all. So that supine Bhadrasan is really helpful therapeutic point of view. But nowhere in the yogic text you will get a version related to supine Bhadrasan. But this has been adjusted by the contemporary yogis who have made it possible for the people who are going through various tapa and tapa to make it easy for them and overcoming their problems. They are coming to this kind of version of the practice. This is how it has to be taken. Yeah. Ashutosh sir, should we proceed ahead? Mahendra bhai?
Nothing to.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, should we go ahead, sir? Ashutosh bhai? Yeah. So, next we are coming to the understanding of Mitahar. Before explaining Mitahar in Shlok number 58, in 57, he is giving us something which is very beautiful to understand, which long time back I told you all, if Sabir Bhai would have understood the whole yogic, hatha yogic procedure, and this 1.5 year, he would have really practiced it wholeheartedly and got it, but then realized that it is not that easy. As we were discussing, we want to do something that we become totally spiritual, but the circumstances or maybe our own karmas or the situation or the dharma or the duties that we are supposed to fulfill is not allowing us to go that easily ahead. So here is something which we should understand clearly and connect it to our life. Brahmachari mitahari tyagi yoga parayanaha abda urdhvam bhavet siddho natra karya vicharana. One who is devoted to yoga should be practicing or is practicing continence, that is control of senses. By all means, all the 10 senses are brought under control. Moderation in diet. The diet should be obviously seen as what is the need, not the want. The desirous things related to the diet is never accepted in yoga, as it is said कि I am feeling desirous. और जैसे कि आज सुबह बात हो रही थी गुलाब अपना इसके जलेबी की, तो I really admire that it is my mind which is saying that I want to have jalebis and do justice to the one who has made it so nicely. It can be taken both ways. It can be taken as an excuse to project that I am a great yogi and I want to project it this way. I'm sorry to say this, I'm holding my ears for that. But Sabir Bhai understands this like this. And there may be another way where in our Hatha Pratipika itself it is ke abhyas kale prathamam shira rajya bhojanam. When you are in the beginning of practice of pranayama, you should have a very good food which is made up of milk products or the ghee. Abhyasa kale really bhute. Once you have mastered, made your body strong, na tadung niyamagraha, then there is nothing to be very much observing the discipline of eating. It is. Now, observing the discipline of eating, there is no need of doing that. Means what? That means okay, somewhere you feel like eating, you have it. You do not feel like eating, do not have it. Because in our Hatha Yoga text, many places, when we come across the chapter of Pranayama in Gheranda Samhita also, the great Gheranda Muni says, avoid only once in a day. Now, this is really questionable, but Gheranda Muni makes it very clear to all of us that you should avoid eating only once in a day. In fact, you should have meals twice a day. Even he says that you should not have the meals within 3 hours. If I have had my morning meal at 9 o'clock and then immediately want to have meal at around 11:30, that is very wrong for a yoga practitioner. He should not. So he is very clear with that. And along with that, he says, as I'm telling you about bringing about that discipline of diet, let me be very clear that you should not be practicing upavas, that is abstaining from meal. Now, upavas has a great higher meaning with various aspects, but here he literally means with that aspect of diet. And he says the person who is practicing hatha yoga or gata yoga, upavas is not meant for that person. Now, that literally is an understanding. The person who is a hatha yogi should supply his body with proper nutritious food where the muscles, the body is strong enough to do justification to the practices which you are trying to do in order to keep your mind composed, calm, peaceful, and lead a. And maybe the same aspect is applying to the great Guruji, DKS Iyengarji. So there he might have gone beyond experiencing the food with its taste and desires, and he wants to just make justice that his practice is having that ability to digest anything and everything, even the poisons, which is, because as you said, sir, at that age of 90 he was saying that statement. I have heard him saying at the age of 90 very boldly in a conference in Lonavala, I am 90-year-old and even today I can practice Shirishasana for 90 minutes. He said 90 minutes, that is literally 1.5 hours, and Shirishasana for 1.5 hours. It was really not, digestible for me. And I asked my teacher, sir, this person being a great yogi, he's so egoistic in his statement where he's saying that I, so many times. You have told us that not to observe I, and he is talking I, and I can stand, I can be in this state of Shirishasana for 90 minutes, and being a 90-year-old, I can do that. Isn't that ego? That time, my respected sir, Shri Parabji, told me, Sabir, you literally need not take it that way. Here, it is an inspiring talk which is happening. It is that we have to understand and go beyond the ego factor and make ourselves understanding that we also need to prepare like him, so that our ability is also coming to that. But that should not become a kind of attachment with the posture, that I want to also do 90 minutes of Shirishasana. That will bring problem. That injury. But your practice, your sadhana should lead to that state of performance where you are able to perform for a longer period. So see, the same Guruji, the great B.K.S. Iyengar-ji, with respect to practice, making us understand how this kind of able body can. Otherwise, we have come across many things in scientific research also, where the great Western people telling us that practicing Shirishasana for longer period may result in the damaging of the arteries in the head, which will lead to the rupturing of the arteries, which is like brain hemorrhage or something like that, which is not good to practice that long. But when a person has brought about a very good control on his flow of blood itself with the practice, a very good control on his instincts, his desires and everything, where does the question comes of the overflow in the arteries and the rupturing of the arteries? So we have to take this diet factor, the culturing of the mind and the body very minutely. And that is where this fact, which says not only brahmacharya, not only mitahar, but the third word coming into that addition is tyagi. He need to practice vairagya. He need to practice tyaga, where he should become a renunciation type of attitude should be cultivated within, so that he becomes detached to everything around. And today only we went through that beautiful shloka, dhyayato vishayan pusah sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kama krodha bijayate. So what a beautiful way to make us understand that if we are not controlling our senses and having a hold on it, we will end up having distracted and deviated kind of senses, which will lead to the shadripus, not only kama, krodha, lobha, moha, many more other things. And this will bring a lot of kind of disturbances to us. So here we are controlling with the other point of view. That was through karma, that was through jnana, and here we are going through the simple process of hatha yoga, which will lead us to the same raja yoga. So there you come across this abda urdhva bhavet siddho. He is saying that you will attain success. Siddho, the person who is practicing brahmacharya, mitahara, as well as tyaga for little bit more than that of a year, maybe 1.5 years or less than that, he will be experiencing a state of self-realization, and there is no doubt about that. He says, Natra karya vicharana. You should not be having a doubt in this, that you will attain success in yoga because of such kind of practices related to brahmacharya, mitahara, and tyaga. So having connected this with that kind of learning that we are going through with Bhagavad Gita and Hatha Yoga, let us go ahead and come to the definition of mitahara, which is a very beautiful shloka, which I like the most. Susnigdha madur ahara chaturthansha vivarjitah bhujyate shiva samprite mitahara sa uchyate. eating sweet, anxious food, स्निग्ध घी से बनाया हुआ मधुर आहार. When we talk about madhur, it should not be taken as only sweet. It should be taken with that understanding of sweetness, which is prasadanam to the mind, which is agreeable to mind, which is pleasing to the mind, which is going to bring peace to the mind. So what are the things which are madhur in that point of view? So susnigdha madhur ahar. And he says chaturthansha vivarjita, the fourth part of the abdomen, or I should say stomach, should be kept empty. Chaturthansha vivarjita. And he says bhujyate shiva samprityai, by offering this food to the Lord first, then you can go ahead and have the same. And this is mitahar. So he is talking about four things. One is snigdha, the second one is madhura, third one is the keeping the fourth part empty, and the fourth one is always before having the food, the anna for your own body, making it nutritious for yourself, offer it to the Almighty. So when you offer it to the Almighty and then you have it, it is going to have a different kind of effect on your mind and body. Such a nice way to make us understand. And this is our heritage and our culture makes us understand. Bhagavad Gita also talks about the same thing, how we should be offering. There is one shloka which I do not remember, which our teacher used to make us recite always whenever we used to sit with him and have food, and that is from the Vaishwanaraho, something like that. I am not able to recollect. If any one of you knows that, Sunil Bhai or Ashutosh ji, you can just say that this is beyond that, and that Agni is what we are stimulating so that the digestion of the food will take place and we will go ahead. I'm not recollecting the exact number and the chapter, but it is a very beautiful verse which we always chant before having the food. So can I connect with you all?
I don't remember it immediately, but I'll find it out.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I have heard this. Vaishwanaro Bhutva.
Yes. So it's talking about the having the food and igniting the gastric fire and making it able to digest it, absorb it, assimilate it nicely, and make it palatable or applicable to the body in order to gain success in yoga. So this is how we need to understand the facts and go ahead. Any other thing, Sunil Bhai, you would like to share something? Okay, we should move ahead. Now we are coming ahead with the non-agreeable and agreeable diet, which is the 59th, 60, 61st, 62nd is all dealing with this. First, he says what we should not eat. What are the things that we should be avoiding? And many a times when I explain this to my students and tell them that these are the things that you should not be eating, they say, it's fine that we should not go for meat, fish, which are non-veg, and we should not go for liquor and all. But at the same time, yes, sir.
That shloka I got. Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva. Praninan Deham Ashritaha. Pranapana Samayuktaha. Pachamyannam Chaturvidam.
Pachamyannam Chaturvidam. Yes. So the four aspects.
The four things that you mentioned.
Yes.
But he's saying Pranapana Samayuktaha. That Vaishwanara is Pranapana Samayuktaha.
Yes, because something, the heat inside the body, not only the Jatharagni, but the other Agnis also are becoming concentrated for that kind of process. The whole body is involved in that feast that you are going to have. And it is connected. Guruji used to explain it very nicely whenever he used to say that. And I am now I should think that when this thing has reminded me of the same thing, and we are going again with the revision of Bhagavad Gita, getting motivated to start chanting it again before having my food regularly now. So somewhere, thank you, sir. Sir, can you please help me with that chapter and the verse number? Sorry, unmute.
15 shloka 14.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
15, 14.
Right. So this is where we are connecting to this. And now I was telling you about that whenever I talk about these non-agreeable things in Hatha Yoga that a yogi should follow, students ask, ऐसा बोलते हैं, सर इतना सब मना कर दिया, कुछ तो समझ में आता है कि नहीं खाना चाहिए, लेकिन बाकी का चीज भी नहीं खाने का, तो फिर खाने का क्या? And when they say like this, I tell them, don't worry. The next shloka coming next is 62nd one, which is telling us what you can eat and which is really going to help you all to excel in yoga. And that is the beauty of this Hatha Yogic text. So he talks about Katu va Amla, Tikshna, Lavana, Ushna, Harita Shaka, Sauvir Taila Til Sarsham, Sarshapam Madhya, मत्स्यान आजादी मांस दधी तक्र कुलथ कोल पिन्यक हिंग गूल हिंगुल हिंगुल शुनाद्यम अपथ्यम आहुहु. Now he is talking about this eating food which is bitter, katu, lavana, amla which is sour, tikshna, pungent, lavana, salty, ushna, hot, harit shaka, the green vegetable. There are few selected green vegetables which we are not supposed to eat, and because these are something like very difficult to digest by the digestive system. And he goes on to talk about the sour gruel, oil, mustard, and sesame. Now, mustard and sesame, in today's scenario, if we are not eating, you will feel, if these are not eaten, then how you will get the strength to the body? And let me tell you, here in these 4-5 shlokas, Swatmaramji ends. But if you go to Gheranda Samhita, almost 18 shlokas, right from the shloka number 16 to 32 of the chapter 5 of Gheranda Samhita, he is giving us the whole idea about the diet. Okay, what you should eat and what you should not eat in the Gheranda Samhita. That we will be coming across later, no doubt. But here he is telling us not to eat oil, mustard, and sesame, and avoid consuming alcohol, fish, meat. Now you will say, sir, even the dahi and buttermilk, that is tak or the thasa, has to be avoided. Yes. Kulatha. Kulatha is something related to, like, udid, or it is a kind of, in our Maharashtra, we call it as kulad, which is a very tough to digest by the digestive system. I don't know how you call it in the north, but this is something which is a pulse which is not to be eaten. Then there are certain berries, oil cakes, asafoetida, that is hingu, and the garlic, which is lasuna, etc., are said to be bad for a hatha yogi. And here he clearly writes in the English translation that the hatha yogi should avoid it. What about the common man? The common man can still avoid the very wrong type of food, which are tamasic and very much rajasic, like alcohol, fish, meat, and something else like kulatha and all. But at the something which is agreeable for them to, as a common man, they can have it. But as a hatha yogi, if you are on the path, want to bring about a control on your senses and don't want to get distracted, this kind of food is to be observed strictly. So it is a strict discipline. I asked my teacher, sir, why should we observe so strict when we say that after practicing Mayurasana, everything we can digest? Then why should we avoid it? If a person is fond of eating this thing, why should not he eat? Then sir said, Sabir, he will not progress. He will remain and get stuck at the asana only, because this kind of heavy rajasic and tamasic food will bring about the changes in the thinking ability, reasoning ability, which we call as manaha, buddhi, ahankara. All these antahakarana will get affected, and the discriminative thinking, the vivek buddhi, will not work. And that is where you will not come to the understanding of the philosophical aspect about the truth, about the reality. And that is the reason that it is not only that a hatha yogi should practice, but every individual who is on the path of yoga and trying to understand and gain success, he should be following this. It is different that once a person has gained control on his senses, as we were talking about a sthita prajna, who has been able steadied mind, completely controlled with his senses, and has got everything well under composure. Many a times such yogi may go through this kind of anap chanap eating, but still they won't get affected. I don't know whether I shared this with you all, or some of you shared it with me. I don't know, from this class or some other class. Once Gautama Buddha went to a treat given by his disciple, and his disciple made the uh, treat of non-veg. The other sadhakas, or the disciples of Gautama Buddha, they were wondering how come the great master has sat and started eating what is being offered. And they were trying to do gestures. Okay, this is non-veg, and we as the followers of our Bauddha Dharma, we should not be eating it. But the great Gautama Buddha completed his eating, and after being questioned, he told, I was not eating what was offered, but I was eating with the gesture it was offered. So the gesture is to do with lot of state of mind, and it will not affect your body if you are not having the attitude of relishing what you are eating. So relishing what you are eating is a common man's understanding. But whatever comes to you, you eat and become satiated, is something of that of a sannyasi, where he doesn't say, okay, I want this and I want that, but whatever comes to him, he has it, absorbs it, assimilates it, and keeps himself satiated. So here, whatever was being offered to the great Gautama Buddha, he very gleefully accepted it. Now, these are the people, these are the great Siddha yogis, I should say, who have gone beyond the aspect of body and mind. And they were already in that state of nirvana, or whatever you call. So it may not affect them. But at the same time, people like you and me, we have to follow strict discipline of what is been said over here. Should we go ahead? Anything to share, sir?
Just a small anecdote about Lord Buddha's, since that mention has come, about his last meal. Actually, this one morning, and there's a poor man, very poor man, who came to invite him for a meal. And just soon after, there is another rich person came and said, कि आप हमारे यहाँ खाएंगे. तो लॉर्ड बुद्धा सेड कि नहीं, मैंने ऑलरेडी इनका एक्सेप्ट कर लिया है, तो इसलिए मैं आपके यहाँ तो नहीं आ सकता आज, माफ कीजिएगा. तो अरे ये क्या खिलाएगा, वो तो नहीं, मैंने एक्सेप्ट कर लिया तो कर लिया, आप तो उन्हीं के यहाँ जाएंगे. ठीक है, तो यहाँ गए उनके यहाँ. तो अब वो ही वाज सो एक्सट्रीमली पुअर कि उनके घर में कुछ भी नहीं था. तो वो बिहार मशरूम होते हैं जो वाइल्ड जगह में उग जाते हैं, तो उनकी उन्होंने लेके कुछ सब्जी बना ली थी, और वो रोटी, जो भी मतलब सीरियल था. अब वैसे तो यूजुअली मशरूम्स एडिबल होते हैं, पर समटाइम मशरूम्स आल्सो पॉइजनस, एंड अनफॉर्चुनेटली ये वाले पॉइजनस थे. तो जब भगवान ने खाया तो वो जाहिर है कि उनको पता लगा कि बहुत कड़वा है, लेकिन वो खाते रहे. खाते रहे और पॉइजन के सिस्टम मूव करता रहा, लेकिन वो खा लिए पूरा। तो फिर जब उसका इफेक्ट दिखने लगा तो वो तो इंसान तो घबरा गया कि बाकी लोगों ने कहा, अरे ये आपने क्या किया, ये क्यों आपने ये मालूम, आपको मालूम था कड़वा है, पॉइजनस, आपको नहीं खाना चाहिए था। बोले नहीं, वो इतने प्यार से खिला रहा था, उसके पास तो जो था उसी ने वो प्यार से सर्व किया, तो मैं उसको मना नहीं कर सकता था। कोई बात नहीं, मे बी शायद दिस इज टाइम फॉर मी टू गो, तो ये ये एक एक्सक्यूज था। और उन्होंने एक ढूंढी भी पिटवा दी गांव में कि भाई मुझे जो भी फर्स्ट मील जिसने सर्व किया है मेरी जिंदगी में, वो बहुत पुण्य को प्राप्त होगा। क्या कर रहे हो, दिस इज ट्रू। तो इसको मार देंगे कि तुमने हमारे गुरुजी को मतलब कर दिया है, उनको उनका जीवन अंत कर दिया है। दिस इज दैट्स व्हाई he'll be protected because I have said this. So जो भावना जो से भावना जो खिलाने वाले की, पकाने वाले की बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण होती है। इट्स जो ये स्टोरीज एंड अदरवाइज ऑल्सो अपने हमारे आपके उसमें भी देखा है हमने कि जब जाते हैं तो वन इज ऑफ कोर्स आउट ऑफ रिस्पेक्ट फॉर द lady of the house who has cooked, you do often tend to agree, but and that also that's why I said कि अगर गुरुजी अयंगार जी ने ऐसा किया है क्योंकि बनाने वाले के लिए, so there is a bhavna is always I think has greater power than the physicality, and
Yes.
someone who is there can always manage the effects physically but respect the bhavna.
Yeah.
तो I just कि या क्योंकि ये जिक्र आया था यहाँ पे
हाँ.
भावना का, इसलिए थोड़ा लॉन्गेस्ट स्टोरी थी, बट आई जस्ट थॉट आई विल शेयर।
Thank you very much. Anything else, sir? Ma'am? Okay, good. So we will go ahead for the next. He is talking about what should be avoided again. As he mentions about all these things which should be avoided and should not be eaten, in the 60th shloka, if we see, bhojanam ahitam vidyat punara api ushna kritam ruksham ati lavana amla yuktam kadashana shakotakam varjyam. Now, food that is heated over and over again is obviously dry. You should not avoid, you should not eat it, you should literally avoid it. It is excessively salty, or if it is sour, the food with excess of vegetables is going to be unwholesome and also should be avoided. So here two things he makes us very clear, that we should not be eating the food which is heated over and over again, which usually happens. Now, people who practice yoga, they don't eat stale food, but people who are of the tamasic nature and rajasic nature, कल का बचा हुआ खाना सुबह सुबह तवे के ऊपर थोड़ा सा और मिर्ची का झाग लगा के उसको और भून भान के अच्छी तरह से मजे लेकर खाने वाले भी लोग हैं. So I just want to make it clear that we should not go for that, because that is going to bring about the downfall in yoga. So he's saying is very clearly, bhojanam aham vidyat. Please note it down. Punar api ushna kritam ruksham. This is a very dry kind of diet which is going to bring about a lot of disturbances, and anything which is excessively salty, sour, with excess of vegetable is also unwholesome and they should be avoided. Vahani stri patasevanam adau varjanam acharet. Now, three more things have been explained here or added here. Vahani, that is basking near the fire or coming to maximum exertion, coming to exposure to heat, should be avoided. Stri. Now here stri should not be literally. When my teacher was letting me understand this aspect, he said कि you should not take it as the male person should avoid the females, and it is not talking about the females. In fact, here the statement means you should avoid the company of the opposite sex. Whether it is male, he should avoid females. Whether she is a female, avoid the company of the male. because that is going to bring about a certain kind of vibes which is not good for success in Hatha Yoga. And then they use the third aspect, Patha Sevanam. Patha Sevanam means the long journeys, traveling. Now, traveling exposes you to different kind of weather. Every 30 kilometers or 40 kilometers, you will be experiencing a different kind of state of climate. And this will not help the body to get accustomed to the changes which the practices are trying to bring about. And it will literally not help us to excel. So there you should be avoiding the long journeys. You should avoid the company of women. And at the same time, you should avoid the exposure to fire or heat. So he says, Vahani Stri Patasevanam Adau Varjanam Acharet. Basking near the fire, company of the women, and the long journeys are to be avoided while beginning yogic practices. And he doesn't stop here. He says, the statement which I have told is seconded by, or I should say, it is already been said by Gorakshanatha. Now, Tatahi Goraksha Vachanam, when he says, Varjayed Durjana Prantam, Vahani Stri Patasevanam, Pratah Snan Upavas Adi, Kaya Klesh Bhim Tatha. So, Gorakshanath ji has said, wicked localities, Varjayed Durjana Prantam, where terror is existing, Upadrav is there, where people are not making you to or not letting you to live peacefully. This kind of locality is not good for the practice of yoga. Near the fire, company of the women, long journeys. This being said, bathing early in the morning. Early morning bathing is also not advised along with the fasting. Yeah. So now there may be a doubt in your mind why bathing in the morning should be avoided. In fact, it is said that we should have a nice bath and sit for the practice of yoga. Now, people like you and me who are staying in hustling, bustling city like Pune, Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, Gurgaon, and all, should be having a warm water bath in the early morning. When he is talking about bathing early in the morning, maybe taking bath in the flowing river, or maybe having bath from the water from the well, which early in the morning is really very cold. And with that cold water, you will become sensitized. Your nervous system will become irritated, and you may not be in a proper state of mind and body with this kind of stimulated or very much activated or disturbed nervous system. You should not go for the practice of yoga. And that's what the great Gorakshanath, who said this statement in Goraksh Shataka way back in 600 AD. So imagine almost 1500 years back, which was said in this book. He has repeated it here in Hatha Pradipika also, telling us not to have early morning bathing. Now it is a clear indication for all of us that we should not take early morning bath with cold water or normal water, which becomes cold in such a scenario. So we should go for a simple, proper, lukewarm water, which is tepid water to the body temperature, and we are enjoying that bath and then going ahead with the yogic practices. That's how my teacher clarified the things and made us understand that we people living in this kind of city like atmosphere, we should always expose ourselves to yogic practices by having a bath. And the other things you have already understood. And here it is where I would like to stop. The Pathya Ahar we will be dealing in the next 5 minutes. I would like we all to go ahead and try to understand this with some discussion. Even fasting is said avoided. Now fasting here literally it meant that if you are fasting, you will not be having that kind of strength with physical body. See, mentally it is different, but when we talk about physical body, you need that strength in the body to perform yogic practices, whether it is asana, whether it is Kumbhaka, whether it is Nadi Shodhan, or whether it is something else. Because this really required a kind of tapa. And it has already been said that the greatest tapa is pranayamam. Pranayamam paramam tapaha. So when we are going through such kind of hard work, how come we sustain with this body with fasting? So that is where the Hatha yogis should avoid, and the other yoga followers should very well do fasting and continue with their type of yoga. This is how we should understand this and go ahead. Yes, you would like to add anything to this? Please go ahead.
Sabir bhai, this is a
Ah,
early morning bath.
yeah,
You rightly said it's a controversial. In modern times, of course, it's very good. But in the time when the text was written,
G.
I think it was a customary to take a early morning bath.
Okay.
I have attended a couple of, that fairs, Kumbh fair, this is very, very famous.
Yeah.
Kumbh Mela, Magh Mela. And these Hatha yogis come there. A big akhada, a congregation, a big.
Yeah.
And the time slot is reserved from them.
Yeah.
Nobody will take bath in Ganges unless this akhada goes first. Now they have to. So in fact, the time slot is allotted by the government.
Ah.
So the first they will take bath. It's very cold. In fact, January, early January, Magh month. They will take bath around 2:30, 3 a.m. Water is really chill. The whole lot will come. 100, 200, 300, 400, thousands. They will enter into Ganges and take bath. The scene is different. Now, after they have taken bath, the others are allowed. Second category akhadas thereafter. So, that time when Nath Yogi or Hatha yogis, they used to take bath in the early morning. How it is written in this text that it should be avoided.
Now,
For
let me,
modern time, it's okay.
yeah,
It's quite fine.
I would really like to clarify the Kumbha period, that the month of Magh, where the Kumbha is organized or it is being treated, and that time they are taking the bath. It is a special occasion. It is a special occasion. Kind of certain vibes are flowing very high, and taking bath at that time in that flowing river, it is really blessing. But this may not be the same thing throughout the year. That's what he may be trying to connect us and tell us and make us understand. We need to further study this. But what you said is very right, sir. How come this is possible? But let me tell you, Kumbh Mela, or the period of the Kumbh and the organizing during that period, is a different occasion altogether, where we go through that kind of occasion, auspicious occasion, with those blessings and with those vibes. And that is the reason that it may be really good to have take a bath at that time during those hours rather than throughout the year. So this is how I would like to connect to you and clarify the same thing, because this is not said by any other person, but this is said by the great Gorakshanath himself, who was the Shishya of Matsyendranath, a great authority in Hatha Yoga, who has written the text like Goraksha Manjari, Goraksha Shataka, in which we come across with this kind of gestures or understanding. Yes, we need to stop also. Yeah.
Next time.
Sunil Bhai is telling to stop. Ashutosh Bhai wants to say something. Should we take it, Sunil Bhai, with your permission? Or we should go ahead and wind up first with the prayer, and then we can have this discussion later on also.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think that will be the ideal thing.
Okay.
So, Sunil Bhai, please end the session. Sunil bhai, please unmute yourself.
पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णम् आदाय ॐ शान्ति 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 Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. And
for sharing your knowledge and thoughts.
Sabir bhai, once the discussion is through, please if you could stay back for 2 minutes. And also,
Yeah.
Jay Kumar.
Yeah.
I will request also Jay
So,
Kumar.
We just discussed the practice.
yeah.
Please carry on, sir.
Sabir bhai, my question
See.
was that now for the project, this particular project, we are
See.
going to practice the yogasanas, and we are also studying it. So, do you recommend that we should also follow the dietary guidelines given in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika? Do you recommend that we should also follow the dietary guidelines?
Acha.
And number two, it looks like we should follow the dietary guidelines. It looks like, but then would you kindly simplify, because this is rather confusing.
The session with the stay on.
Whatever is given is confusing.
Sabir bhai, you and me.
Ah.
So we just discussed the how you have to.
Okay. Now, to make it very clear with Ashutosh sir, yes, we should follow diet. No doubt about that. Mitahar has to be followed very strictly when we start with the yogic practices. Because if you are not following diet and if you are going through the yogic practices, the results will be not proper or ideal. I am not expecting ideal results, but at least you should feel the change. In order to experience those changes, diet is very important, sir. And if you want me to do that, I am not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but as the way I have understood the diet in Bhagavad Gita, Gheranda Samhita, as well as in Hatha Pradipika, I will be certainly glad to share with you all what is that we should have in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, or maybe 2 times in a day, what we should have and what the other times we should avoid. So we can follow that and go ahead with. But let me make it very clear. As per Bhagavad Gita, it is very clear that it is you who, according to your nature, Sattva, Raja, and Tama. Are you Sattvic? Are you Rajasic? And are you Tamasic? And accordingly, you should start culturing yourself. No doubt you will be pulled towards something which is very much applicable to your nature. But at the same time, we need to discipline ourselves by going towards Sattvika in order to see favorable results that we should do along with yogic practices. So diet is important, sir.
So would you kindly give us your recommended diet?
I will be glad to do that.
Thank you, sir.
I will be glad to do that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sunil ji. Thank you, Jay Kumar ji. Thank you, Sabir ji.
Yeah. Sunil sir, you wanted me to wait?
Jay Kumar is also here. So now, has that arrangement with your colleague been worked out? Who would train Jay Kumar in the yoga practices?
You are asking me, na, Sunil bhai?
Yes.
She is in her native place, and it will not be possible for her to make that happening, because there she says the network is very weak. So we had planned to do it in the month of September. So I told her whenever she returns back to Mumbai, we will have that kind of activity going ahead. Meanwhile, I think we should continue. However, Mr. Jaykumar is taking you ahead with the practice. And whenever she comes back, I will take the session with her demonstration happening. I will make you people understand how to go about with the practices.
Fine, fair enough. So so the way we're looking at is that she could, there will be multiple sessions required. So she could just simply link with Jaykumar directly to you, and then you can facilitate as per your convenience. I leave that to you. But once Jaykumar is able to learn and master this, then since we are scheduling individual sessions with him,
Okay.
So then he can learn from Jaykumar. That's the way we are doing it.
Okay, great. Then I will just connect her to Jaykumar, and they both can have a conversation, and there they can have their own personal sessions, whereby Mr. Jaykumar and she will be able to connect with themselves, and then we can go ahead.
That's what. So I think it's convenient.
Yeah.
So and that way because she would be available only for a limited period of time,
Right.
given similar time, but only limited. Whereas once Jaykumar has learned the posters, etc., then he is available for us all throughout this project duration. Even later when we have a clarification or practice observation, all that can happen. So that's the way we have thought about.
Sure. I will do that. I will make that happen. Yeah. So,
that's all.
Yeah.
And other things, are we from a flow perspective, coverage perspective, are we on track or behind?
No, we are much behind.
Ah.
We are 2 sessions behind.
Oh, okay.
We are much behind. In fact, today was the time where we should have started with the second chapter and completed it. But we are yet to complete the first chapter, where almost, I think, 10 to 15, 10 more shlokas. No, not 10. I think it is 61 to 7. 7 more shlokas are remaining. So we are at least 2 classes behind. 1 class behind.
We've done 61 also.
Yeah.
We now begin 62 next time.
Yes.
Right.
We have to
So
begin.
six slow, right? So I think now we could progress a little bit faster, because now the basic rapport, etc., has been established. The earlier questions and all those doubts have also been now reasonably cleared. So
we can speed up now.
Perhaps so. I mean, of course, it's your choice and decision, but as in how you would like to take it. But possibly we could.
We will do that. See, actually, these 2 chapters, the first chapter and the second chapter, needs a lot of reflection and understanding with the explanation. In the third and the fourth, since they are very higher practice, unless we do these first 2, we won't be able to understand the third and the fourth. So that can be just understood with respect of the theoretical aspect. But here we need to understand with practical aspect. So it will take time.
No. See, in fact, we can allot any amount of time. What I'm saying is, depending on all these factors concerned, we could allot even more time to chapter 1 and 2. There is no problem. Also, because the practices will be held now slightly later. So that way also it's better that we spend more time on chapters 1 and 2. Because the more ready we are, the better we can appreciate chapters than later chapters. Other than it becomes, conceptual. And then we just say, okay, fine. Then
Right.
So
that is the reason that I am taking my own time to go ahead with that.